Started with our introductions and our welcomes on the next slide. There we go. So because we have such a full meeting today, we're not going to unmute ourselves and introduce ourselves. So please, in the chat, please let us know your name, your agency, organization, program, your title, your role, and then anything else that you would like for the group to know about you. We all know each other, I do believe, but it's always nice to have some reminders. And so great, here come the introductions. I'm Kathy Colley Robinson. I am the chair of the education programs at Durham Tech and the current chair of the governance committee. So then on the next slide, we have got our reminder of our meeting protocols. It's so fun to watch all the introductions pop up in the chat. So you all know these. I'm not going to remind you of these. The one thing I do want to point out, we are very close to having a quorum. And so just make sure if you have to leave early that you do let Tamara know in the chat. We have several voting items ahead of us today. Most of those voting items are going to happen a little bit later in the meeting. So just let us know if you do need to leave a little bit early. Thanks so much. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Linda, what do you say?
Yeah, we're still short one. I just quorum watch. We're still short one person, and I do know that Mr. Kaysen Xavier said he would be a few minutes late, so we're expecting him. And when he joins, we'll have a quorum, or if any other voting member joins, and we get a quorum, we will let you know.
Okay, great. Just seeing some things in the chat. Oh, Jason, the spring and the pollen. Oh my gosh, my car was yellow this morning. It's really happening. And Brittany, your child's almost 4. Happy almost 4-year-old birthday. Wow. Yeah, that's been a quick 4 years.
I happen to know a program
You're
for 4-year-olds.
Oh, and Beth, I'm sorry you're not feeling well. We will keep an eye on the chat. Okay, great. So here are our meeting objectives today. So today we really do need to go ahead and decide on the bonus for instructional staff that we've been talking about for the past few meetings. So that will be a big meeting objective to consider a vote on that. We also are going to have a lot of conversations about the 2025 budget, considering setting a base pay rate for instructional assistants.
We have a quorum.
Yay, we have a quorum.
Joining, so we have a quorum. Yes, we're good.
Great. Other components of the budget, we are going to vote on teacher compensation support payments. Then we're going to look at seat reimbursement rates and review and vote on those, hopefully. Of course, we will approve our minute notes from January. And then as time allows, we will have some wonderful program updates. You did receive the program updates by email earlier. So hopefully you've had a chance to read over all of that. A little bit worried about time today. So that's why that's at the very end. We hope we do have time to hear from folks about the program updates. Okay, so let's talk about those bonus payments. So let's have some conversation about the end of year spending authorization.
And move to the next slide. Yep.
So as we discussed at our January meeting a lot about the bonus, remember that we have, so I'm going to give just like a quick reminder because I know it's been a while since January. There's been a lot going on. So we've given these bonuses since the 2020-2021 school year. They started as a result of the COVID pandemic, when teachers had to be in the classroom risking exposure while other people were able to work from home. It's continued each year since then and has turned into more of a retention bonus as we're on the other side of the pandemic. As a reminder, this bonus has always been dependent on available funding at the end of the year. There's not a specific line item in the budget for these bonuses. So every year the amount has been based on what's been left remaining. So this chart shows the amount of the bonus each year, as well as some notes regarding who was eligible and how it was structured. So the first year, if staff were working full-time in person the whole year, they received $1,834.62. And staff who were only in person for half the year received half of that amount. In 21-22 and 22-23, the bonus was $4,000. And then last year, the amount was tiered based on the number of years the teachers had been in the Durham pre-K classroom. So there were 3 tiers of bonuses. That's what you see there. For the current school year, based on our current spending projections, we estimate that a per teacher bonus would be somewhere between $800 to $955. Again, that's including both lead teachers and instructional assistants. This is an estimate just based on where we are with current spending patterns. It could change between now and the end of June, depending on how payments for the next few months goes. That's why there's a range there. In our sort of reminder also that in our survey from last year, teachers did express, while they were grateful for the bonus they did receive and talked about how that was helpful to them, they did express some frustration that the bonus was substantially what was lower than in previous years. And so since if a bonus is authorized for this year, it would be substantially lower than even last year's bonus. We want to be able to give teachers advance notice to let them know what to expect regarding the bonus amount, or if it's not coming at all, so that we can go ahead and let them know so they're not caught off guard, that it's lower or that it may not come at all. So wanted to put that in historical perspective for you. And so
Yeah.
with that, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say I'm sorry that I didn't use Joy. You guys remember that Joy is our Joy Turner's our director of data and provider services, and she and her team interface with the providers around financial issues all the time, and so they also are responsible for our customer satisfaction surveys and our interface with parents around their satisfaction with the program. And their engagement with teachers around the survey last time, there were a lot of positive comments, and the few isolated comments that were really concerned about the size of the bonus and the fact they didn't get confirmation about a bonus really led us to be reminded that when you establish something over quite a few years, it becomes an expectation for some people. So.
Mhm. And I think it would be really helpful. So the reason that the bonus amount is what it is right now is because enrollment has picked up. Is that accurate? Is that why there's not as much
Yeah.
extra?
Yeah, just for context, we don't have a line item in the budget for teacher bonuses. It was something that happened, as Joy mentioned, because of the pandemic, and it was never something that was budgeted for. But we have the very real situation where our allocation of funding is based on what we're able to foresee, but based on the way payments are made, the way turnover, we at times would have money at the end of the year. Obviously, it's a big plus that we have less money available now, because it means, number one, that we're doing a better job over time by establishing patterns. We're doing a better job of deciding how many seats can we afford and what should we offer. We're doing a better job with that piece of it. And we are, because of enrollment and attendance, we're spending that money. And so it's a good thing there's less money available for a potential bonus. And someone did ask in the last meeting, what would happen if we didn't do a bonus with that money? We, first of all, even if you pass a bonus, of course, it then has to be approved by the county. If you didn't approve a bonus, and if the county wanted to, they would talk with us about whether we could carry that money forward for next year or not. Typically, the instructional funds revert, any unspent instructional funds would revert back to the county, is the way the contract is set up. But we would negotiate with them about whether that money could go to next year if you decided not to do a bonus.
Mhm. Thanks, Linda. That's super helpful to know. I think it's also really helpful to see the amounts on this chart. For me, it's really helpful to see. And I think just to also, for my own context, to think, okay, these were pandemic money, enrollment differences. And so it really, it makes sense. It's helpful to see. So what questions or comments or thoughts does the group have about this? Now that we've had several conversations already, we're seeing the amounts, we have a better handle on what a bonus potentially could be. Are there additional questions, comments, thoughts? I'd love to hear that. Okay, well, hearing none, let's go to the next slide. Oh, wait. Jason, that's a very good question. Joy, could you speak to that? Do the teachers understand how the bonuses are generated?
I would say probably not in depth. I think that we have definitely in the past when around this time of year, some teachers have started asking, is there going to be a bonus this year? And, we've replied, we're uncertain at this time. It's dependent on available funds and governance voting to allocate those funds and that sort of thing. They, so like it's sort of out there, but I don't think it's really something that they understand and internalize. And we have tried to, when we have announced the bonus, we've talked about, like, this is that governance has authorized it and stuff like that. But as far as really understanding that that it's not a line item, that it comes from the remaining funds at the end of the year, I would say that that's probably not something that's common knowledge among the teachers.
I mean, I will addressing what Jason put in the chat about, an incentive. The bonus has been a great tool, and we hear from teachers and instructional assistants how much they value it. And during COVID, there were a lot of extraordinary measures taken to support teachers. But I do think that even though we have tried to tell people, I agree with Joy that I would not be comfortable saying that it's really clearly understood. I see my Tall has her hand up.
Thank you. Once we move forward with the vote today, is there a plan in not only communicating if there will be a bonus and what the bonus will be, also making sure it is clear, like you've presented to us today, to all teachers, this time, how historically this was created and how it had looked over the years?
Yes, I mean, the reality is that we tell people things a lot, and it is hard to, in that period of time when people get their bonus, it's hard to really get them to be totally clear about why they're getting it and where it's coming from. I think that our plan moving forward, based on the last meeting, the in-person meeting where the discussion around the bonus was extensive, as well as our meeting last fall when we discussed it. It was clear to us that we need to, moving forward, if we're going to have a bonus, it does need to be a line item of some sort, whether it would be a base bonus that would be a line item in the budget, and then there'd be the potential for possible enhancement of that bonus based on unspent funds in the future. But the reality is that those negotiations with the county would need to happen around the contractual arrangements, because it's, as I said, it's never been a line item. But I mean, it has been in writing to the teachers about, that it's number one, that it's not a permanent bonus and all of those things. But I do think that based on that last survey that we did, we all agreed among the team that we need to be aggressive about the structure and frame for the bonus if there's going to be one, because we never anticipated there would be a bonus available multiple years like this. So, but in the instructional budget, if there was a bonus, most likely it would need to be decided upon as a base bonus that would not substantially inhibit our ability to offer seats. We would have to balance those funds carefully in planning for a budget if that was what was desired.
Thank you. And I'm glad to hear that you're considering adding this as a line item, especially after County Manager Hager encouraged us to think about it for next budget season. Thank you.
Okay. Beth, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I'm going to try to talk instead of write. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay. I guess my feeling is that it's important that we move forward with the bonus this year as opposed to just not doing it and providing some thorough explanation, because I don't know if any of you all have worked jobs where bonuses came every year. You do begin to rely on them somewhat. Maybe you don't know what the amount is going to be, but you do begin to rely on them. And especially while I think Durham PreK does a much better job than many of the other places across the childcare sector are able to do, these are still not high paying jobs. And that bonus money can mean the difference in paying some of these like life emergencies that people may have to put off. And so I think it's important that we do it this year with clear explanation of why. And to be honest, with the potential changes in federal funding coming down next fall, there's a very real possibility we will not be able to do this next year. But I think it's important that we kind of hold true to that this year and use this opportunity to really explain it. And I also think that it's important that people understand that it is not tied to performance. That this is the fact that we can't provide you a bonus is not because we don't appreciate you. It is not because we don't see the value in your work. Because, I mean, I know my husband's job, that bonus, when it depends on outside factors and that's not communicated to you, it can be a real morale hit. And so I think it's really important that we be very transparent, but also that we carry through this year, because if people don't know at this point, they may really need that money right now. And we haven't set the precedent that it won't be there.
Thanks, Beth. June?
Yes, good morning. I mean, I think Beth just said it all really. You know, I'm always an advocate for whatever we can give the teachers is going to be a benefit to them. And especially because what I've noticed with the teachers at Yates is that I think it has encouraged them to stay as opposed to going somewhere else. So I think the teacher retention part is a big thing. The only question I have is, will there be money this year for the classroom? Or is that something separate? Because previously they've had money for the classroom.
Yeah, so what we've done in the past and what we intend to do this time is at the later meeting, at the May meeting, we will have a better picture of the final expenses for the program in terms of, you know, because we pay our attendance out, and we will be analyzing. And what we've done in the past is we've moved forward to ask you to authorize a classroom bonus if there is the opportunity to do so. What I will say is that because of the way you have voted to improve our payment structure, the pre-service payment that is given to every site by classroom, that pre-service payment has really been a big difference for those classrooms. And that money at the program is authorized to be spent the way the program needs it to be. So the classroom bonus could be argued to not be quite as important as it might have been in the past. However, we are committed to obviously having our programs restock, and we would bring something to you in May for you to consider.
And so we have a comment from Brittany in the chat and question from Joy in the chat.
Yeah, I think, you know, Brittany's comment as a parent and her observation around children is so true. The reality is we are still very much coping with the impact of the pandemic. And so shifting this bonus now, thinking about it as a teacher retention bonus is obviously something that we want to consider because nothing's more important than retaining our staff. And then Joy asked in the chat about the status of the teachers. So unfortunately, the teachers at this point, the teachers have not received any communication regarding the bonus. There was a lot of discussion about what to do today, and they have not been communicated with at this point, which is why we're at a place of extreme urgency. And after this meeting today, plan, if a vote happens, plan to communicate with them immediately.
Thank you for answering that. And I wonder if it is appropriate to preface or to include in that statement a heads up about the payment. Either way, chopped up, the payment will be significantly
Joy,
lower.
we
So I'm
might
wondering
have
if
just
it's
lost
appropriate to
you. We're
give
not
that.
hearing you right now.
Okay, I'll put it in chat.
While we're at this little pause place while we see if she's able to be heard, I wanted to acknowledge that Mr. Kaysen has joined us, and welcome, Xavier. Appreciate you being here. As well as Miranda Marshall from Kids Are Kids joined us right before we started.
Wonderful. Great. So Joy, oh, there you go. Great. So Joy, are you suggesting before they're notified of which way the vote goes next, we should warn them beforehand?
And she's coming back in now.
Oh, okay. Hi, Joy. Wondering if we're able to hear you. Could you just expand on that last question?
Yeah, sorry,
yeah.
hoping y'all can hear me now.
Well, we can hear you, yeah.
So I'm wondering if it seems like however, okay, after the vote, after we know how we vote, it seems like however the cookie crumbles, the amount is going to be significantly less. So when we communicate the voting decision to the teachers, if it is an affirmative vote, is it appropriate to go ahead and let them know? And because of the way spending went this year, that bonus amount is going to be significantly lower. So as Beth said, if people are already kind of like planning and budgeting in the thousands, that's not going to be a possibility for them for this year. Is it appropriate for us to give them a heads up about that?
We feel a tremendous sense of urgency, and yes, we intend to be as absolutely clear as we can possibly be so that they can plan for their personal budgets. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, lots of great discussion. So now we need a vote. Either way, it's time to vote. So we're looking for a motion to either authorize or deny a bonus payment to instructional staff, depending upon available funding. And just remember, we're just making this, we're voting, but then the county makes the final decision. So looking for a motion. Lynn, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say that, historically the county's not overridden anything that this group passed, but they could. And so we always like to be really clear about that. So thanks.
I move that we vote to authorize or deny bonus payment to instructional staff dependent upon available funding. And that's Jason Rutherford.
Thanks, Jason. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Michelle, thank you. Any last discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your virtual hand.
Don't see any voting member that didn't raise their hand.
Okay.
If anybody was trying to vote against it, we would just want to clarify that.
Yeah, sure. So let's have everybody lower their hands. The hands never move as quickly as I want my hand to move. Okay, then if anybody does not approve this vote, raise your hand. Okay.
Appears to have passed unanimously.
Yeah. Okay, so we have voted to authorize the bonus payment for this year. And I think that with lots of clear information for instructional staff going forward for next year. Great. Thank you all for that. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the budget for next year.
Yeah, basically, we're at a place where we can't really tell you much about the future, what the future might hold. What we'll share is that about a month ago, we were asked to submit our request to our early childhood liaison from the county, Maytal Barak, who's here. And I'll be honest and share with you that this budget was particularly difficult to craft because the reality, as we know, is that is not likely we will get what we asked for because of the economic climate, but we also were committed to, in a forthright way, asking for what we felt was appropriate and needed. So we did ask for an increase to 8.5633 for next year. For point of clarity, for last year, we did ask for 8.2 million. And although we did receive an increase and we were really grateful for it, we did not receive what we requested last year, like many programs. We were grateful for the increase we got. But perspective wise, when you look at our current budget of 7,373,000, you might think, wow, why did they go to 8.5? We must be adding a lot of seats. I wanted to be really clear and share that this budget will add minimal seats. We normally, any increase would reflect a need for more seats and additional seats, and we will, if funded, we will add some seats, but it will not be a significant number like it has been in the past. This budget increase is really surrounding the reality of inflation, the reality of the cost of care. And our entire meeting, the rest of this meeting, we will be talking in depth about that. So you'll get a lot more information about it. But I didn't want to begin that discussion around our voting issues without putting in context what we've asked for. And I think it's obviously very difficult to move forward where we're, this program is no longer brand new. We are still growing though. And if you'll move to the next slide. For perspective, we have our community goal, and that is to serve 75% of the total 4-year-old census without limitations to who can be a part of the program. The clearly derailed our growth trajectory. We know that, obviously. And we're still coping with families and children around the reality impact of COVID. And it is disappointing in that we are very committed to growth still. We're still working with sites that want to grow. And anyway, so I just wanted to begin by sharing that with you. We won't know for a few months what our budget will end up, and we'll be talking with you about some advocacy when the time comes to really represent the program in ways that we share with the community and with our elected officials how important the program is for young children. We believe that this program as an early education program is pivotal to this long-term success of our community, and we're committed to that, obviously. So, but I wanted to just let you know that the analysis for the budget really, in terms of the main cost is always, addressing personnel. We have built in costs for teacher increases and all the reality of what's happening. But as I said, the bulk of the money is not to add a large number of seats or sites. So,
And Linda, I just want to say the
Okay.
obvious.
Yeah.
It's going to be impossible to grow without teachers. And it's going to be very critical going forward to make sure that we're able to have the teachers. And I know there's more to come in the agenda to talk about the teacher compensation.
Right. So just technology check-in. I think, Joy, are you back and able to communicate? Because I saw that you had left the room. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
believe
I
so.
see.
Oh, we
I
can't hear
see her
Joy.
box, but I don't see her.
I just let her back in, so she must be having issues.
Can
Yeah.
you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
on my phone
It's
now.
the reality.
Okay. I'm not sure
Okay.
what's going on.
We've lost her again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Now
can
we
hear
can
you.
hear
we can hear
you.
you.
Can you
Now we
hear me?
can, yeah. Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, let's move to the next slide. Marilyn? Okay,
Is there still an echo?
there is an echo.
Do I need to advance the slide again?
How about now? Is there an echo?
Nope. You're all
It's
good
gone
now.
now.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So we're going to look at 3 different items that need your consideration, and they're all related to the overall budget for next year. We will hold discussion and voting on these items until after the break. So it's a little unusual because normally we would, vote after each item, but since these are all interrelated and affect the budget, we didn't want you to vote yes on one thing and then realize it had an impact later on, and so that's why we're approaching it this way. If you have like a burning question where like something that I say is very unclear, or a question about one of the charts, feel free to interject, but we may try to, depending on the nature of the question, we may say let's pause that for the discussion later on. So we'll just kind of handle this a little bit differently than we normally do. If you can go to the next slide, Marilyn. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is the minimum hourly rate for instructional assistants. So you can go to the next slide. So as a reminder, the governance has a history of setting the minimum rate for instructional assistants based on the living wage in Durham County, but hasn't tied itself to a particular living
Okay.
wage calculation. Last year,
We-
in March,
we
you
lost
voted to
Joy's
set the
audio.
Yes.
All right, I'll keep going.
I can hear her.
Can you hear Joy?
Yes.
I'm sorry, can you not hear
Is it
me?
just me?
We can
Anybody
hear
else
her.
hear Joy?
Yeah, we can
Okay,
hear.
well, I'll shut up. I'm not able to hear, but go, Joy. So,
I'm not able to hear her either. all of the committee members, though, are you able to hear her?
Yes.
No, not
Oh.
able to hear.
You
No.
can't hear her either?
I
Okay.
can hear her. Mhm.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll keep talking and we'll hope that this resolves before we move on. But we all have knowledge, so we can continue the meeting. So, as you remember, we voted in the past to create a base pay for instructional assistants. In the past, we had a rate, and last year we moved forward to align the rate with the Durham County rate as the rate that they were paying their minimum staff cost, their lowest salary, and their base pay. We voted to do, and now we're at a place where we're considering the rate again. And through the data we know, so what we just set a minimum. A site can pay what they feel the employees' credentials and experience merit, but they have to pay at least the minimum. Right now, the average IA rate is $19.90 an hour, and the median is $19.21 in terms of our currently employed instructional assistants across all programs. At the present, the City of Durham living wage for fiscal year 25 is $19.58. And in Durham, there hasn't been an increase in what they are paying based upon the latest information that we have gotten. And we're concerned that we want to have consistency and transparency wherever possible. And this issue about the IA rate, we don't want to be a surprise for anyone. So we had looked around to consider options. What we found was that the City of Durham has tracked the living wage for Durham for many, many years and publishes that information on their website like over time. They have it available for many, many years. And the county doesn't do it that way. And what we were seeking was an option for consistency. And we were interested in having this discussion to consider whether you would want to adopt a rate that was tied to something that's transparently available online. So we wanted to bring this forth for your consideration. Joy, are you I know you're on the phone now. We want to try to talk and see if we can hear you?
How about now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can everyone else hear you?
I can hear you.
Okay. Hold on just a second. Alex has her hand up.
Oh, that's to say you can hear her, right, Joy?
So you're great.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. All right. Joy just kind of put the text around the program. I don't know if you could hear me or not, but can you remind me what our base requirement is right now?
For assistance
For assistance, yes.
is 1921.
Right. And so what you can see is that our base requirement now is 1921, and that's reflective of the median that, so half of our instructional assistants are getting paid more than the minimum of 1921, and half are at the minimum. So we just wanted to entertain the option for you to either, the options are you could not change it this year if you choose not to. You could set a rate to give some other minimum, or you could consider tying it to the City of Durham living wage as one option, or you could ask us to seek some other option.
And so just for me to be clear, right now we're getting the information and then we're going to have the vote on this after the break. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Are we open for discussion right now if folks have
if it's,
comments?
you know, if you feel like if anyone feels like they just can't move forward without any other
Okay.
questions being answered. Doesn't seem like there are. So Marilyn, we can move to the next. Okay, Joy, you want to try again?
Okay. Yes. I don't know what's going on. I'm so sorry.
Okay, no worries.
So the next issue we'll look at is our teacher compensation support payment. So you can go to the next slide. So we, before we look at the revised framework that we're proposing, we want to review the current model and the gaps that it creates. So on the next slide, you'll see a graph that shows our current model. So the current teacher compensation support payment offsets the cost of paying teachers on the Durham Public Schools salary scale through a monthly payment to the provider. The payment's based on a graduated scale, which considers the monthly salary and teachers' years of experience. The support payment increases as the years of experience increase, so that there's not a huge difference between paying a teacher with a little experience versus teachers with a lot of experience. The chart on this page shows this visually. So the green line is how the teacher's salary increases as they gain years of experience. But the orange line shows the amount that the provider is responsible for thanks to the teacher compensation support payment. So you can see that's fairly steady. So even as a teacher increases their years of experience, the amount the provider is responsible for stays relatively flat, and in fact actually decreases towards the end with where teachers have the most experience. Only lead teachers who must be paid on the Durham Public Schools scale are eligible for this payment. So that's lead teachers with a residency, initial, or continuing license, including an add-on license. If teachers have an emergency license, a temporary permit, or no license, they would not be eligible for the payment. So the result is providers can hire the most experienced teacher they can find without concern for paying a substantially higher salary for the more experienced teacher. What we wanted to discourage was sites feeling like they could only hire teachers with low experience, and that was the purpose of why this was initially started with Durham PreK. If you go to the next slide, while this is helpful and it's working as we intended, there are still issues with the current model because it does not address the fact that the base salary for Durham PreK that the provider is responsible for is significantly higher than the average salary for a pre-K lead teacher that's not in a Durham PreK site. And it also doesn't account for the fact that median tuition rates have risen at a higher rate than our Durham PreK per child reimbursement over the last few years. So we're going to look at both of these issues separately. On the next slide, you'll see two charts that show the hourly wage compensation for lead teachers and for instructional assistants. The one on the left is for lead teachers. The green bar shows the typical pre-K teacher at a 5-star center in Durham County earns $17.50 per hour. However, the minimum rate for an unlicensed teacher with Durham PreK, which is the orange bar, is around $24 per hour, and the minimum rate for a licensed teacher with 0 years of experience for Durham PreK, the blue bar, is around $28 per hour. So you can see that's a significant difference between the green bar, which would be your regular preschool that's not part of Durham PreK, and the blue bar, which is what we require of a basic teacher starting out. Similarly, on the right, that's for instructional assistants. So the typical pre-K assistant at a regular private site, it's not Durham PreK, makes $16 per hour compared to the $19.21 per hour minimum that we just talked about for the current school year. That difference in pay falls on the site to provide. On the next slide, you'll see median tuition rates over time. So when we started Durham PreK, it was our intent that our higher per child reimbursement rate would provide the financial support necessary
to pay lead teachers and instructional assistants at these higher rates. So we knew we were asking them to pay the teachers more, but our intention was that by providing this higher per child rate, that's where they would get the funds to do that. And then that the teacher support payment would make it easier for them to hire more experienced teachers. However, over the past 6 years of Durham Pre-K, the median tuition rates at 5-star Durham centers have increased at a higher rate than the Durham Pre-K rate has increased. And you can see that on this chart by the lines getting closer together in the last couple of years than they were at the start. So the gap between private tuition and the Durham Pre-K rate continues to narrow. And the result is that the Durham Pre-K per child rate alone is no longer able to sustain paying teachers at the Durham Public Schools salary scale. We're concerned that some providers may decide it's more financially feasible to stop participating in Durham Pre-K and to only accept private pay children, which would make it difficult for us to meet the demands for public pre-K in Durham County if that were to happen. So if you go to the next slide, because of these gaps, what we propose to address these challenges and to prevent losing Durham Pre-K providers, we propose adding a base payment to the teacher compensation support payment for non-public school sites that all lead teachers and instructional assistants would qualify for, regardless of their license status or years of experience. So what we're proposing is that what that base payment would mean is that the site would receive $300 per month for each instructional assistant, $400 per month for an unlicensed lead teacher, and $1,200 per month for a licensed lead teacher. So this base payment would be in addition to our experience payment, which we would just basically rename our current teacher compensation support payment to an experience payment that would increase with the rates as the years of experience increase, just like normal. So that part would stay unchanged, and that would become the experience payment. And what we would be adding is this base payment that you see on the left-hand side. If you go to the next slide, please. This chart is for visual people like me who need to see things visually. This is the impact of what the base payment would do. So on here, the purple is the amount of the teacher's salary that the provider is responsible for. You can see that remains relatively constant across the board, with the exception of unlicensed teachers, where they would be responsible for a little bit more. This is intentional, as we did not want to create any financial incentive for hiring an unlicensed teacher. And so that's why you see that little difference there. The blue is the amount of the new proposed base payment, which stays the same as years of experience go across. You can see that blue part's always the same. And the orange is the current support payment model that we would rename the experience support payment. And you can see it increases as years of experience increase to meet that salary. Can you still hear me?
You blipped out for a second, but we mostly heard. So I think that, as Joy mentioned, being visual, the thing about this, that the first thing I look at this and say is, okay, when I look at fairness and how we want to be sure that our policies that we are deeply committed to because of our support for teachers, as well as our commitment to high quality and what research tells us about the difference that the staff make in the classroom with children. What this says to me is that, in my mind, when I look at the proposal for a revised framework, that base payment is assuring us that we can stand, in my mind, that we could stand by our commitment to requiring that all teachers be paid on the public school scale, and that we are requiring a base pay rate for instructional assistants than is typical. in childcare, we know that wages are abysmal across the board. And so part of me even hates comparing to what private pay providers, because it's so driven by what parents can afford to pay and all kinds of issues that depress wages for our early educators.
So Linda, there are a couple of
Questions?
yeah. So Joy, could you just remind us about the seat? So the goal for the county and Durham Pre-K is to have, what is the percentage of Durham County children served?
75% is what our goal.
Right. And so that's why the goal is to always increase the amount of seats that are being added. Does that answer your question, Joy?
For me, right?
Yeah, sorry.
On
I
the
keep
other
forgetting we
slide,
got
did
multiple
we
Joys.
say the 42% figure that was on the slide, is that the percentage of seats that we're currently filling?
Okay, so what that 42% is it's telling us that based on the number of seats we have available, that we currently have available in the public preschool sector for 4-year-olds, that we are able to serve, if full, we are able to serve 42% of the census of 4-year-olds in Durham. So the number, all the 4-year-olds in Durham, which we know some parents are never going to want their child to enroll. That's why the 75% goal is not 100% is a goal. So we use that measuring tool to say, is Durham Pre-K growing toward our dream of being able to serve 75% of the children? And so our funders, in the past, the elected officials who vote on the budget for Durham, they've always said, we're going to give you more money, but it's because we're giving you more money so you will be able to serve more children to get to our 75% goal. And this is the first time we've asked for funding to actually, we need more money, but we need it to just maintain where we are in a robust way. So does that answer your question, Joy?
Yeah, no, yeah, I totally get us needing more money. That's across the board. I totally get inflation, and I'm hearing now, which helps me better understand that funders want the seats increased, and so, trying to meet that goal. Yeah, so I was just wondering, because we haven't yet been able to get 100% enrollment for the seats that are available, right?
That's true. So you'll recall that we have a braided model, and within our seat population, some seats are fully open to any child because they're paid for locally with our local money that we're really talking about in this request. But some seats are through our partners, NC Pre-K, Head Start, and with the public schools, some Title I, braiding of funds and other funds. So those other fund sources have restrictions on enrollment. And so some of our seats are not fully open, but some of our seats are. And so our goal in the entire population of public preschool among the partners is to have enough seats for 75% of the population. But no matter how many seats we have, it would be very difficult to achieve and maintain 100% enrollment at all times. I will say that our unrestricted seats consistently stay very full. We do have some challenges with some of the seats, in particular NC Pre-K seats. The state has restricted enrollment and has guidelines for eligibility that continue to make it challenging to fill at a higher level those seats. And we continue to advocate for the state for change. If you look at the landscape of NC Pre-K across the entire state of North Carolina, this is a problem statewide. It is not just a local.
And then Brittany has a comment regarding the funding, the essential aspect of the funding. Beth, I see your hand.
Yeah, I guess the one question I had is about the braided funds. I mean, we kind of are at a standstill with the federal funding theoretically till September with a continuing resolution. But as we plan for next year, my anticipation would be that there will be changes to federal child care funding, not necessarily, I would imagine, not favorable changes. And so I'm just wondering how we're putting that uncertainty into our budget planning as well.
Yes, that is a very big deal. And we have been very concerned and following very closely through all our contacts with the federal government. We are developing contingency planning and looking at how will we meet our children's needs if these funds disappear or are dramatically reduced. Because we have a braided model, we are vulnerable. You know, we can be excited about, wow, aren't we great because we're being efficient by braiding. You can serve more children by braiding, but the reality is obviously you're dependent upon those funds if you're braided. So we're very closely monitoring, and we're very aware that our local dollars, which our elected officials have consistently committed to, that our local dollars are all that we are able to directly control. But we're working closely with the partners, and there's also an advantage to being braided funding, because if one area gets cut, you would hope that all areas don't get cut. So, it's a double-edged sword with our braid. But we are very aware, and I will say, you see in the materials we sent you that we reminded you that we might need to have a July meeting. I think that as time evolves and we get more information about the federal budget and potential changes, and also the state too, we hear things that we don't like about how our state's investing children. And at this point, obviously we don't know a lot, but we are trying to look closely at, in particular, how many seats we have that are fully locally funded, how many seats we're braiding with, and what would be the impact if those other funds went away for that braided seat. So unfortunately, there's not really more to say at this point, but we would definitely obviously bring back to you analysis and deep thought about what the most innovative strategies could be to adapt if the worst things happen.
This visual is super helpful for me. And I again, I'm just gonna keep saying the obvious. The licensed teacher reimbursement that is critical, as June has referenced, for teacher retention to keep them in Durham pre-K classrooms as opposed to going to a kindergarten classroom. June, I see your hand.
Yes, the teacher support payment, if I've understood this correctly, some of the providers have a hard time paying their staff at these rates. I think I'm right in saying that. And that, I think, is impacted by the programs that are not enrolled. So if they have less children, it's more difficult for them to pay their teachers. Am I right in that? So anything we can do to help these programs, because otherwise I'm afraid they will decide that they can't afford what Durham PreK is asking them to do. And, we don't want that to happen. We want to continue this program. It's so valuable.
Yes, I mean, enrollment is a very critical piece of the puzzle. And I think that the reality is, with our analysis of those seats, we can see we're tracking very closely, because it's not just whether the seat is filled, it's how many children have filled a seat in a year because of turnover of children, retention of children, attendance, and then also where seats haven't been filled, especially at certain sites where enrollment has been really challenging. We're continuing to analyze what are the reasons for that? What is the impact? We know we have the barriers for parents and families in terms of transportation, wrap care, that type of thing that could be a barrier to enrollment. But there's also site barriers to enrollment, where some sites are in less trafficked areas or in a be as convenient for families, and we're trying to analyze that carefully. The teacher support payment being paid to the site to address the hiring and retention of seasoned, experienced teachers has, as Joy mentioned, worked very well. But the reality is that all of our expenses have gone up so much. I think that this move to consider a base payment in addition to the enhancement payment that Joy's suggesting we change the name for the support payment to, this came from provider voice. Let me be really clear. We hear the providers and we hear their anxiety and concern about being able to pay at public school rate and pay the higher wages that we require. And because we require higher credentialing and experience than a typical program, as well as the expectations within the program. And cracking the nut of enrollment and attendance has to be a partnership between every site as well as our team members and every partner, school system, NC Pre-K, Head Start, all programs working together to really crack the nut of enrollment. And what we often say is that if there's a 4-year-old in Durham who's not in Durham Pre-K, we want it to have been a deliberate decision by a parent, not because the parent wasn't fully aware of their choice and option to enroll. And that continues to be high priority, ramping up. Tamara and her team have ramped up all kinds of activities around educating families about the opportunity that public preschool offers.
I think the other piece regarding this is that some of our classrooms, it's not enrollment that's the issue, but their capacity is smaller because they have smaller physical classrooms. And so they may only serve 9 children or 13 children or 16 children instead of 18 children. Yet they still have to pay their teacher and their teacher assistant the same as if they had a full classroom. And so the base payment would help all sites the same regardless of the number of seats that they have. And it would help those sites that have to serve a smaller number of children due to space constraints, the same as a site that has a full 18-seat classroom, which is more typical. And so that's also another benefit of doing this instead of just adding it all to the per child rate and expecting that to provide the full support.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I think where I got cut off was I was going to provide the estimated cost of this new base support payment for non-public school sites. The estimated cost would be $388,600 per year is what we estimate based on current teacher status. So I think, Linda, we could move on to the final section, or do we need to have more discussion now?
I think it would be appropriate to move on because all of these things need to be considered together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the reimbursement rates per child. So go to the next slide, please. So as we think about the per child reimbursement rate, we want to examine our previous rate increases within the context of median private tuition rates, and then we're going to look at them in context of other rates. So as we mentioned before, the Durham Pre-K reimbursement rate has always been higher than typical due to the higher standards for Durham Pre-K. That includes smaller class size, higher salary requirements, paid planning time, additional professional development. In the current school year, the reimbursement rate is $14.56 for a classroom with a BK licensed teacher. This chart shows the increase in median tuition rates in Durham County, along with the increase in the Durham Pre-K rates over the same time period. And you can see that when Durham Pre-K started, our reimbursement rate was 22% higher than median tuition. However, in the current school year, our rate is only 14% higher than median tuition. This reduces the incentive for sites to become Durham Pre-K since they're not getting as much of a return on investment for meeting the increased quality standards. If we were to increase our Durham Pre-K rate by 4% to 1514 next year, our Durham Pre-K rate would be 17% higher than current median tuition. This is still less than where we were in the first year of Durham Pre-K, but we've also added additional supports in that time. For example, if we approve the base teacher payment, that would help to make up for some of that 5%. We also have introduced the pre-service payment during that time, which helps as well. So we do feel like increasing the rate is something that should be considered, and this gap is one of the reasons. If you go to the next slide, this is another way of looking at our reimbursement rate. Go forward, Marilyn. And one more. There we go.
No, wait, I'm seeing the break slide. What, everybody seeing the break slide?
Yeah.
We need to
go back.
You want to go backwards?
There we go.
That one.
That one. Yes. Thank you, Marilyn.
So this chart you've seen before, but we have added the proposed subsidy rates in the dark orange color. That's the second bar. So the current subsidy rate is the green bar. It's $12.73. The proposed subsidy rate next to it is $14.52. That rate is currently under consideration by the legislature to implement in October. Of course, we don't know, it's not passed yet, but it is being considered as part of next year's budget. If that is implemented, $14.52 would be incredibly close to our current rate of $14.56. I mean, it's for all practical purposes, it would be the same. And it means that providers could make almost the same amount serving just children on subsidy as they could being a part of Durham Pre-K and following our enhanced quality standards. We do also typically see an increase in the median private tuition when the state increases their subsidy rates. It's common for sites to increase their tuition when the state does that. And so we would anticipate seeing an increase in the median private tuition if that were to happen as well. So that is a concern about leaving our rate is the same as it being very close to the new subsidy rate.
Yeah, and I want to interject and just say that obviously we don't know what will happen at the state level. However, in the most recent statewide subsidy advisory committee meeting, the discussion was around the market rates and what the state is paying for subsidy. And we feel that the state has acknowledged that the subsidy rate has to come closer to the true cost of quality care. And so we believe that it will go up, whether it will go to this amount that they talked about, which is based on the new market rates. It's very hard to predict, but we felt like it was important to bring it forth. But more importantly for us was to look at over time, we've always compared our Durham Pre-K rate to the private food rate. Again, these numbers that we share with you are based on the current preschool rates in Durham. And the NC Pre-K rate that's listed there is the rate that Durham pays NC Pre-K. It's not what the state provides for NC Pre-K, but it is the amount that Durham pays through Smart Start allocations for NC Pre-K.
And you have to wonder, as the stabilization grants are gone and gone, like really gone, if the median private tuition isn't going to increase even more. Yeah. Okay, this has been super helpful. We have lots of information. We're about 3 minutes away from our quick break. any discussion right now before we take our break? Any questions? Do you want any more information? Because when we come back, then we're going to be doing some voting. So would love to hear if there are questions or comments. Okay. Well, then I think the next slide is showing a 5-minute break. And we are 2 minutes ahead, y'all. Woohoo! So let's take a quick 5-minute break, stretch your legs, run around, and we will be back at, are we going to do true 5 minutes, 10:48, or should we bump it up to 10:50?
It's up to your pleasure. You're the chair.
All right,
You decide.
let's do 10:50. We'll be back at 10:50, everybody. Hi, everybody. It's 10:50. Time. I hope you got a chance to stretch your legs. Okay, so now we are back. And it's time for some voting, but I'm just curious if there are questions, if you need some more information. And you'll see that we have 3 things to vote on. Correct? We're voting on all 3 of these bullet points. Right. Okay, great.
Yes.
Great. So are you ready to vote? Do you need more information about each of these? Are you back?
I think we've got some folks still working on getting back,
Yeah.
which is understandable.
And the technology today, boy, it is just being
Yeah. It's
cranky.
been really challenging.
Yeah. But it's working. We're making it work. Great. Joy Spencer's back. Beth is back. Brittany's here. Great. Okay, I'll repeat myself. So Jason's here. It's voting time. So I'm just curious if you have questions, if you need to revisit any of the slides that we saw previously, in order to be able to vote on these 3 items, or if you're ready to vote and someone wants to throw out some motions, we'll be ready for that too. Just to remind you, we're voting on 3 separate things. The minimum hourly rate for instructional assistants, the revised framework for teacher compensation support payments, and then the reimbursement rates per child.
Quick question, just to circle back. I may have missed it. The proposed budget for next year, the 8.5, was that done with consideration of this getting passed?
Yes. So what we did was we played all kinds of scenario activities, and we did take into account, if you passed this, what the impact on the budget would be. And what would happen would be, first of all, whatever vote happens today in any category, obviously, will go to the county for approval. But in the context of the budget. So we don't expect what we asked for, and we do have some prioritization for cut places where we would make cuts to accommodate whatever amount we receive. If you pass these things, this would be the first things that we would prioritize meeting in whatever budget we're given. And then what would happen is, if we didn't have our full request, we would be coming back to you to negotiate around what are the things that should be prioritized the most. And so it's possible you could pass this, and it's possible we would have to make some future adjustments. But we believe that everything that we are asking you to consider is core to the program. And so we would be looking at cuts, such as potentially cuts in seats for children in order to pay more for the seats that we have, or cuts in any scenario when you're doing budget negotiations. But to answer your core question, yes, we found that you may pass these things, and how much that would cost is taken into account into the request we made.
Excellent, thank you.
Great. Okay. What other questions? Or is there a motion?
We do want to get, if we're going to vote, we want to vote on each one of these individually, with motion, not a bulk motion.
Mm-hmm. And so to recap, the minimum hourly rate for instructional assistants, the proposal is $19.21.
No. So actually, no. The
No.
current minimum rate, the current minimum rate is $19.21. And what the staff is recommending you consider is that you consider if you would like to adopt a standard. We would always back here, but we would be following a standard of using the City of Durham living wage as the rate for instructional assistants. But we would come back to you every year to verify adoption of any changes in that. But we would be using that as the tool to set the rate. You could, if you're not comfortable with that, you could raise it currently is in 2021. You could direct us to do a percentage increase, or you could ask us to align with some other entity. Marilyn, do you mind going back to, for us to move forward with voting, if we can go back to the minimum hourly rates slides, which maybe somebody can help me with the
Number
slide
12.
number. Number 12, thanks.
12.
Thank you. So as a staff, we recommend that we adopt something that can be visible and transparent to our instructional community. And the City of Durham is the only one we've found that for decades has tracked this and publishes it in a transparent way. And so that was one thing that attracted us to that. But if that was adopted for the upcoming year, the rate that we have presently of 1921 would move to 1958.
Thanks, that's super helpful. So that's what we're looking for a motion on, if anyone is so moved.
This is Alex Holland. I'll make the motion that we approve the increase in compensation for instructional assistants.
Thanks, Alex.
I second the motion.
Thanks, Jason. Any further discussion? Okay, so
Can I ask a clarifying question? Even though I'm not a voting member. So Alex's motion moves to increase the rate. Are we moving to increase the rate to any point, or to the potential city rate, or some other amount?
Sorry, I thought that the proposal was to move it to the city rate. Is that correct?
That was our staff recommendation.
Yes.
If you
Yeah, that's
wanna
what I'm
adopt
moving.
that.
I'm making a
Okay.
motion to approve the staff recommendation to increase the average compensation for instructional assistants to match the City of Durham living wage. Did I say that right?
yeah, thanks.
Yes, thank you.
So Jason, does your second still stand?
It does.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So since technology is not being friendly today, let's do this. If you are in favor of this, do nothing. If you are not in favor of this, please indicate that. Raise your hand, go off mute. I am not hearing or seeing anything. Okay, so then we all have approved, motion passes. Linda, was that allowed?
Yes, if,
Okay.
as long as people have a chance to say no, then they
Okay.
did, so we're good. So
Right.
just for clarity, I want to make sure. So Alec made the motion and Jason seconded it, correct?
Mhm. That's correct.
Great, and it passed unanimously. Thank you so much. We'll notify sites and staff that the rate will increase with the new school year to the City of Durham living wage. And each year in the future, we'll come back to you and tell you what that living wage is for the upcoming year. But we will use that as the guide.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so the next thing we're going to vote on is hold on.
This is the
Thanks,
revised
Marilyn.
framework. It's okay. So we're going to
Yeah.
vote on the revised framework for teacher compensation support payments.
Now, do we need to see that slide so we have that information in front of us before we make motions and vote? I think so.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
There you
gonna say
go.
slide
That one's
19 was
way-
what, yeah, that one.
Okay, great. Okay, so the vote would be to approve the base payment structure that we're seeing in front of us.
Would be helpful if we could get clarity that you endorse adopting not the base payment and keeping the experience payment. We currently have an experience payment model that we call the teacher support payment. We don't call it the experience payment, but we would begin calling it that. But we want to be really clear that you vote up or down to add a base payment and keep the additional currently in place payment, that we would change the name and call it experience payment. We just don't want any confusion about whether we're doing an either or type of thing. We're recommending both, but obviously this group has the opportunity to do whatever they're comfortable with.
Great. Thanks for that clarification, Linda. All right, so we're needing a motion either way to approve or to not approve. So we're looking at this base payment along with the experience payment for the upcoming school year.
But I motion that we adopt the proposed new payment system that would provide base payments, increased base payments.
Thanks, Beth.
Brittany, second.
Thanks, Brittany. Okay, any clarifications, further discussion? Okay, just like before, if you approve, do nothing. If you disapprove, do not approve. Please indicate that in some way. Raise your hand, come off mute. Okay, I'm not hearing any. So this approves unanimously as well. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so now we're looking at the reimbursement rates per child. Yeah, thanks, Marilyn. Okay, and so staff are proposing that we consider a 4% rate increase for the upcoming school year based on all of the information that was provided as to why this is necessary. And I think it's important to remember too that we've just voted to approve 2 different types of increases. And so this is looking at just specifically the reimbursement rate.
I'll move to increase the reimbursement rate by 4%.
Thanks, Joy. Do we have a second?
This is Waikisha. I second.
Thanks, Waikisha. Okay, any clarifications, any comments? Okay, all in favor, you don't do anything, but if you disapprove, if you're not in favor, please indicate in some way, raise your hand, voice that. Okay, hearing none, motion approved unanimously. Thanks, you all. That was a lot of
Thank
voting
you.
today.
It was a lot of voting. We have a little bit more voting,
we're not
but
done.
it's not, well, we just need to vote on the notes from your January meeting. And you'll recall the notes were inclusive of our business portion of the January meeting, as well as the extended facilitated meeting we had, which thanks so much again to those of you who were able to participate. That was still so helpful for us as staff for guidance. Joy put in the chat asking about sharing that she has to leave and whether it would affect the quorum. No, we're fine. We established the quorum and we're able to move forward even if someone has to leave. So, but I again want to say that we hope that in the future you'll consider doing some more extended meetings with either with or without facilitation, just as we grow over time and as we continue to invest in this initiative. We know it's really critical that we're always checking ourselves and reviewing our program policies if they're still important and relevant, and that we're listening to our voices of our constituents. And I think today's voting is just really so much a measure of how much we are trying really hard to always be listening and adapting to the environments that we're in. So we really appreciated the investment of time you made to the January meeting.
It was a great meeting. It's always so nice to be in person and to have extra time to have deeper conversations. I always appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, so let's take 2 or 3 minutes to just have a quick review of the meeting notes. So take a look at your meeting notes. They were sent out to you earlier from January. And then once you've had a time to review, please note if there are any comments, any corrections, and then we'll be looking for a motion to approve the January meeting notes.
And I'm going to have to excuse myself. So
Okay.
I know you guys will have a great end of meeting and I'll get caught up. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Linda. Any corrections or anything for the meeting notes, or are they looking okay?
This is Alex Hollett. I'll make a motion that we approve the notes as written from the last meeting, the minutes.
Thanks, Alex. Do we have a second?
Brittany second.
Thanks, Brittany. Any further discussion? All right, just like before, if you're in favor, don't do anything. If you're not in favor, indicate that in some way. Raise your hand, come off mute and let us know. Okay, hearing none, the minutes have been approved. Motion passed unanimously. Thanks you all. We're done voting. So now look at this, it's 11:09. We are way ahead of schedule. So we have time for some program updates. And then we have opportunities for you all to ask questions about the program updates. Tamara, I think I'm turning it over to you now. Is that right?
Yes, I don't know if Nita wanted to talk about the AS conference since this was, I call it her baby, but if not, I'll move right along. Can't hear her, so pretty much
Can you hear me?
now I can.
Okay, I couldn't find the mute button. Sorry, Tamara. I'm like, what in the world? Okay, so on the slide, it's kind of spotlights the successful, I believe, in-person Durham PreK track or thread that we did this year. Out of 84 teachers, that actually should be 84 registered, but 74 actually attended, which is pretty awesome. So we had a few people that were unable to make it, but I just wanted to lift up the teachers. I believe really got a lot out of the training, and the topic you can was it's okay to have big emotions, managing emotions in the classroom. And Kat King, Whitney Gaffney, and Jenna Tarlington from the Community Partnership, Inc. were the facilitators. They did a great job. It was a very interactive workshop. And if you're curious, the topic was voted on by the teachers. So we did survey the teachers in advance to find out what their interests are. And you all know challenging behavior seems to resonate. And so we have offered multiple PD opportunities around this topic, whether it's through a PLC, professional learning community, a COP, community of practice. We've offered a networking session where they can log on and just talk to one of our healthy social behavior specialists and ask questions on how to handle emotions in the classroom. And it's a big deal. Our children are struggling. And so this workshop gave them an opportunity to just add some more tools to their toolbox to use in the classroom, and it allowed them to have resources that they can use. We had a make and take at their tables where they could assemble some items that could be used in the classroom to help children with transitions and handling schedules. A lot of children struggle with transitions. And so the workshop allowed the teachers to have some tools that can be used. As I said, in the classroom, they were awarded credit hours for attendance. We had raffle prizes available for them. 3 centers won tricycles, and they were pretty excited about that. But we also had materials for them to use in their classroom. And Tamara and I and Marilyn made sure they had some money. We had Walmart gift cards, Amazon. So, something for them. So I just wanted to let you all know that it was a successful PD opportunity for our DPK teachers. And this included lead teachers and assistants. And we were honored to have a few teachers attend from the apprenticeship model. So thank you, Maggie West, for sending those names our way. Thank you.
Thank you, Nita.
Having 74 or 72, however many teacher, how many you said, that's a huge turnout. That's amazing.
74. It was
Yeah.
held at White Rock Child Development Center. And so we want to thank Jennifer, the director, for letting us use the space. And we had catered lunch from Durham PreK. So, Kathy, they did the lunch for us, brought it on site. So it was a very good day. Thank you.
Moving on to our application and outreach. We had a virtual bilingual family info session that was held on actually February 3rd. So we had about 270 people registered and 163 families attended, which was a great turnout as well. The 2025-26 application has begun. It is now open. By the middle of March, we had about 877 applications were in progress or under review. Our first Roll Up and Roll event, as you can see a few pictures to your right, was last weekend on March 15th. It was held again at Durham PreK, thanks to support with our partners. And all of our Durham PreK partner agencies were in attendance. We had about 20 community resource vendors, 44 families were served, direct assistance for at least 23 Durham PreK applications. And of course, we had the screenings, the ASQs that were done bilingual. So we've been cranking out a lot of hours on Saturdays, but had good times and good attendance.
I mean, y'all are getting such great attendance. So this is so many people to have showed up on a Saturday.
All right, next slide, please. And that's all of the Durham PreK updates.
Great. So do we have any questions? So you all received the updates in your email packet. Did you have any questions, or do you have anything you wanted to check in with Durham Pre-K staff about? I see positive comments from Beth. Brittany had a heart up. We're just so appreciative of all of the work that staff are doing to support teachers. The fact that you are having such good turnout at all of your events, it just really speaks to all of the hard work that y'all are doing. It's so very appreciated. So we're at the end of the meeting, you all. We're going to get out of here early today. So just to remind you, our next meeting is May 15th. That's going to be a hybrid, so in person and virtual. We'd love to see you in person. Also, remember, we might have to meet again in July. So please hold July 17th. Go ahead and put that on your calendar. But it's really looking like we are going to have that meeting, because as we're waiting on the budget information to come back, and we won't have that probably before our May meeting. So go ahead and mark that date on your calendar. Otherwise, that is the end of our meeting, and I would just need a motion to adjourn.
Kathy, can I say one thing really quickly?
Yes, Beth.
I'm feeling really honored to be amongst the folks that Governor Stein has appointed to his new gubernatorial child care task force. And there's so many wonderful things going on in Durham Pre-K. So as you all have ideas, things that you feel like should be lifted up on that task force, please send them my way. We want to make sure that all the great work and great ideas and innovations that we're doing here make it up to the state level. So please feel free to reach out. I know there are a lot of early childhood advocates that are on that task force, but I just want to specifically say I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Beth, and thanks for lifting that up. I don't know if everyone on the call is aware of Governor Stein's Early Childhood Task Force. And Beth, I have not seen the list of who's on the task force, so I'm so glad to know that you were on that task force. Do you want us just to contact you directly of any ideas or any advocacy?
Sure, and I will put my email in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else from the group that you would like to share out? Great. Okay, there's Beth's email address in the chat. All right. Well, if nothing else, then I am just looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Alex Holland. I'll move that we adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, Alex. Do we have a second?
Brittany, second.
Thanks, Brittany. Okay, if you're in favor of this, you may leave the meeting now. Anyone not approved, stick around. Hope you all have a great rest of your day and a good weekend.